The housing for the directional mic was done. So I took the prototype helmet, and integrated my old mic into it. Setting both pieces of the mic into the housing and sealing it together, then running the wire through the helmet to connect with the radio. Flipping the thing around, I just popped the radio casing, and hardwired them into unused ports. A few quick checks making sure it all still worked, I sealed it back up and flipped it around. Yep. Looked a little weird, but hey. Additional functionality. I plopped it on my head and ran some tests switching radio to directional mic, and it worked like a charm. I laughed in delight as I spun around on my chair, letting the mic struggling to handle the quickly changing environment, but that was fine. Because I was pulling in more and more alerts. 100 crafting XP gained. Satisfied, I set the helmet aside and decided to change things up. I still needed to figure out what an ECM system would look like before I messed with the chest rig, so I decided to do some work on weapons instead. This particular weapon was something I had a plan for, so I quickly checked it out, pulling it out of the case that it had been in. Took it apart, made sure everything was working, and put it back together. The Shingen was a really good smart SMG. Probably one of the best smart weapons out on the market, even if it was a tiny thing. And Malcolm had a smart link. The Gonk had barely used it, but it was perfect. He could be my backup with the Shingen, letting him stay in cover and be safe while still helping. I set it aside, and picked up the next weapon case. I had considered for a while what to get Ichi. His vehicle focus was great, but that still left him in danger, but since we had just lifted a high-end Arasaka shipment, well, the choice was fairly obvious. Yukimura was solid smart pistols. I had actually slipped 2 of them out of the shipment. One for Ichi, and one for Hiromi. I think Hiromi already had a smart link, or if she didn't I would talk her into getting one, but Ichi didn't, but again I was going to bully him into it. Sure, if we dealt with enemies with ECM their smart rounds would be way less effective, but I wasn't worried about my chums running into ECM-backed Borgs. I was worried about scavs, or street gangs. Giving them each a smart weapon? It was the greatest advantage, accuracy and rate of fire with the lowest negative. Sure, I could have pulled a Malorian for Ichi, I even considered it, but Ichi and Hiromi both weren't combat focused. So better to specialize them towards smart weapons, giving them a big damage boost, while training them to delta the fuck out of any combat they wind up in. I looked at the 3 weapons and nodded. I would add them to each of the armored suits as I prepped them. I could even paint them to match if my chums wanted. With that sorted, it was back to the grind. I would need to make sure the holsters would be specialized for my chums' weapons of choice. Malcolm of course would get his Shingen clipped into the front of his chest rig since it was a bit big to holster normally. I did have some fabric around, but I wanted something a bit tougher. So it was time for another shopping visit to the old lady that made my leotards. The old lady waved me in the back door after I knocked and I entered the sweatshop-like back room. You need more leotards? Get bullet holes in even more of them? Not this time. I'm doing some work altering some combat armor, and need some supplies. I answered as I followed the woman over to her little desk which I joined across from her. Who? Combat armor is good. Keeps your insides on the inside. What are you thinking? Well, I want to make some holsters that will match the armor, as well as some adjustments. The armor is currently built for much bigger people than my chums. Well, other than maybe Malcolm. He was pretty tall. Gangly teenager and everything. Well then I can be of help. I have a roll of armadillo weave that might suit you. The old Asian woman lit a cigarette and blew out a mass of smoke from her lungs. It's over there, take a look, girl. I nodded, hurrying over to where she was waving, finding the roll of. Well, I wouldn't call it fabric, it was almost like textured plastic, but it was flexible like fabric, and it was studded with some sort of hexagon armoring throughout. It's bulletproof. Decent stuff. Expensive. I have eddies. That's not a problem. Good. Then we will trade. Now come tell me how the leotard has been holding up. Issues? Chafing? No, it's still very comfortable, thank you. I might need an adjustment soon. I'm planning on getting some more chrome. Humph. You children and your chrome. Very well. Come with your new measurements and all of your old ones, and I will fix them, or make new. Good? Yes. Thank you, Obasan. PFFT. Your Japanese is terrible, girl. Stick to English. I pouted at her as she just cackled before we haggled a bit for the role of armadillo, but I got it cheap in my eyes and headed back out. I still had so much work to do. The sun was coming down when I got a knock on the door. Before I could even go to check, it opened. Motoko. A wild Hiromi cry echoed through the apartment, and I shifted back from the workbench before she burst in. Hi Hiromi. I greeted and had to quickly stand up to deflect the Motoko-seeking missile from pushing me into the workbench. School's done. Show me the armor. I haven't done most of it, but alright, come here, I'll show you the prototype stuff. I walked beside my workbench where a disassembled set of Arasaka troop armor was laying. This is the basic stuff, right? So I've been going through each piece and seeing what I can upgrade. Since as powerful as Arasaka is, some stuff is expensive to outfit their grunts with. Arasaka has the best equipped troops in the world, Motoko. Hiromi replied, and I gave her a teasing look. Corpu. Stop. She whined at me, and I just laughed but didn't tease her more. It's good, don't get me wrong, but not perfect. I already added some additional functionality to the helmet, and I'm thinking of an ECM system for the chest rig. Yeah, you sent me the request. I haven't had Tim. Hey, it's okay. I'm just going over it. No rush. We have time. I interrupted her. She had started to sound like she had messed up, and she certainly hadn't. Anyway, that's what I came up with so far. Painting and stuff is obvious, but also, we will need adjustment, so I just got back from picking up this. I showed the roll of armadillo weave armored fabric. This still will give me some material to work with. I'm thinking, either we get rid of the old jumpsuits we bought, or maybe just alter them. Hiromi looked at the fabric before humming as she thought. We should definitely do something to increase our style. We need to be, well, not flashy, but we need some flash. Something to make us stand out. It'll help our marketing. I just giggled at the idea of Section 9 having marketing. Sure. I was thinking a tight undersuit, maybe even in the Netrunner styles. Oh, that's an idea. Our casual stuff can be Netrunner chic. But I can do like a cape, or poncho type thing to wear while we aren't in armor. Gunslingers of the web? That could be a cool aesthetic. I sat back down and rolled over to my laptop. I already had Netrunner suits scanned, of course, so I pulled up a 3D model. And then started basically throwing a slick black poncho over the top. That looks weird. What are you thinking? Netrunner gunslinger. Like the Wild West cowboys. Clint Eastwood style. Oh. I could even get everyone some net gogs for tactical displays. Or just the aesthetic. A group of 4 walking up in armored Netrunner suits, and net gogs. We would seem like a cool Netrunner gang. And then of course we show up in the full armor. Can mine be green? Hiromi asked, and I shrugged, shifting the color on the poncho to more green. No, that wasn't right. Maybe green around the edges. I could do some of that with the Netrunner suit as well. When I was done, I looked to Hiromi and she was nodding. Not sure the boys will want to go skin-tight Netrunner suits though. They are comfy, and have protection. Plus, you can wear them under normal clothes. Besides, it's just for when we are on the job. Hey, I'm just saying Ichi and Malcolm will probably complain. Hiromi said, and I had to nod at that. It's fine. This was a cool little project. I already had their measurements. I would need to see the old lady again for more Netrunner suits. Hiromi and I were hanging out in the living room just watching TV as I took a break when the boys finally showed up. Let's get the party started. Malcolm called out from the door as I opened it, and he and Ichi came sauntering in, arms full of snacks and drinks. This was supposed to be a meeting about our stuff. I grumbled, but Hiromi was happily cheering along with the boys, so I couldn't do much but just shrug and turn this into a party. We had done a big gig after all, and we had all had some time to have a sleep and clean up. Oh man. That was the beast. Malcolm called out, arms up in the air with a brosif in his hand. I mean, we did it. My upgrades to the van worked out great. Ichi added in, sounding proud. Double HMG turrets are very scary. I agreed. Were there any issues with them hitting each other? I know you don't have a lot of space with both of them. A little. I ended up taking over one of them manually to keep firing. I'll kludge together some firing programs for you. Make sure they fire together and don't interfere with each other, I said, and instantly Itchy looked pleased. Bleg. No more work talk. Party. Malcolm demanded, throwing a brosif into Itchy's hands, and attempting to put one on me, but flicked it back on him and picked up my soda. Motoko showed me her idea for our new stuff, including the Netrunner undersuit. Hiromi added, and I looked at her in confusion, because the way she was speaking was almost teasing. Absolutely not. Nope. Both boys instantly denied. I'm never getting in one of those skin-tight things, Malcolm added, and I looked between the two of them. No, but it'll look cool. There will be an armored poncho on top for casual wear, we'll be cyber gunslingers. It'll look preem. No. Ichi denied, shaking his head. I looked to Hiromi, who was holding in her laughter, and at the sight of my face she failed. I'm sorry. She gasped out around giggles. I just knew it wouldn't work and wanted you to know before you set your heart on it. You guys suck, I grumbled. Fine. I'll keep the cool cyber gunslinger outfit for myself. What do we do for our less armored setup then? I was planning on it being something we could easily throw our gear on top of. I'll just wear my normal clothes. Just take off my jacket or something, Malcolm offered, and Itchy just shrugged along with it. Fine, you absolutely tasteless fools. I'll make you armored clothing or something. Uck. I grumbled, my idea of a team of matching cyber ninjas all disappearing. Maybe another time. It didn't matter. Whatever my chums wanted, as long as they would wear it and keep their butts safe, I was happy. Oh. I have stuff for everyone. I stood up and rushed to the room, grabbing the cases with the weapons and cheerfully bringing them back to the living room. So since we just got a bunch of high-end Arasaka equipment, I think it's time we do some weapon upgrades. Hiromi, Itchy, these are for you. I pushed both of the smaller cases to them, and Hiromi looked pleased as she pulled out her Yukimura, quickly gripping it, and checking it out. Good, she did have a smart link. Ichi, on the other hand, just looked neutral about it. I don't have the equipment for this. I know, I said assuringly. Smart link and optics are something I figured would be a good idea to start with anyways. Is that okay? You aren't like against cyberware or something, right? No, of course not. It's just expensive. And I didn't really think I would use smart weapons much. They are perfect for you though. Easy to use, highly accurate. Perfect for spraying into a crowd of gonks causing you trouble, and then you have your HMGs for bigger stuff. Hiromi gets a Yukimura too. It's a really solid self-defense pistol. Yeah, I guess. Probably about time I spend some eddies on some chrome anyways, he offered, scratching at his head. Well, just make sure to take it slow. Smart link and optics, just get some good stuff. You have the eddies now, yeah? Yeah, he said, finally sounding confident. A reminder that we had made a lot of eddies on that last gig helped. What about me? Something a bit bigger, I said, sliding open the bigger case, and there it was. The Shingane. Huh? Shingane? Firepower and accuracy. You already got the smart link, so it can help make sure every bullet counts, and you get a bit more firepower than Hiromi and Itchy. Since you'll be my backup more often than not. My words caused a reaction. Malcolm looked up and our eyes locked, and then he smiled, looking pleased. Yeah, I've got your back. I smiled at his confidence. Oh, I finished the prototype for the helmet as well. I want your feedback. I called out as I rushed back to my room, grabbing the helmet and bringing it back out, held in front of me with a big smile. Tell me what you think. Motoko, why does your helmet have kitty ears? What? No, it doesn't. I denied. That was a bold-faced lie. Those are definitely kitty ears. Hiromi confirmed, looking at the housing for the directional mic. That's not what that is. It's kitty ears. Everyone kind of just nodded along together as they looked over the helmet. It's really not. That's where the direction mic is located. I just had to make a housing structure for it to make sure. Makoko, it's fine, Hiromi said, patting my shoulder, and all I could do was pout as my chums talked about my kitty-eared helmet. I hate them all. Sure we aren't going to piss off Danger Gal with this? Malcolm asked Hiromi, and she shook her head. Kitty ears aren't trademarked, besides Danger Gal hasn't been really active as a company in years. They only pop out to do special gigs now. Preem. So when do we get the complete ones? I don't know, maybe when I stop making them look like cat ears apparently. I grumbled, but my pouting didn't help, and only made my chums laugh all the louder. Soon enough everyone was nudging me and smiling, and I finally sighed and just decided to let it go. I guess I accidentally cat ears onto my helmet. Forget it then. Now let's all party. I cheered, raising my Nicola into the air, and everyone clacked their drinks to mine. We partied hard, and while everyone was relaxed I took fresh measurements for my adjustments. The next day, after rolling my chums off my couch and out into the day, I headed out as well. As much as I wanted to keep slamming my head into the tech work, there was something I had been preparing. I headed to Vic's, stopping to see Misty and chatted at her for a while about my recent adventures before heading back down into Vic's shop. I hope you're ready, I called out as I stomped into the bottom, only to stop and smile as Vic wasn't alone. Jackie, I haven't seen you in forever, chum. Ha. It hasn't been that long, Manita. How ya been? Good. We just got back from a huge gig. Worked with an Arasaka corpo to recover some stolen goods. My answer seemed to shock Jackie. What? Really? Oh yeah. Hiromi's dad works in the corp, and he hired us through her to get the stuff back. Turned into a big thing, but we made some serious eddies. I saw V too. I needed to call her in because of a thing. Well, it's good she's doing well. Haven't seen her in a month or so. She's been busy, Jackie offered, seemingly shaking himself a bit to focus, but I did catch it. He was upset. Jackie? It's nothing, Manita. Nothing, he assured me, patting my shoulder a little awkwardly. Jackie was so funny. You know, if my team ends up picking up another big gig, we could always use more bodies. People we can trust to watch out back. The eddies are good, I offered, and he seemed to wince more than seem happy at the offer. I'll think about it, Manita, but let's switch topics. You're here for the old man, eh? Jackie looked to Vic, who had been gathering things up for me. That's right, Jack. I told you I had an appointment. You ready, kid? For Chrome? Always, I said, but then took back my words as I didn't want Vic to think I was being blasé about it. I'm mentally prepared, and I do need this. It's important. All right, kid. Well, it'll be a while. So go ahead and get comfortable. Jack. Say no more, Vic. I'll come chat with you about that move I can't get another time. Just practice it. I think you'll surprise me, if you keep at it. All right, kid. Let's get you changed. I nodded, and slipped into the medical gown. I woke up instantly, blinking and feeling just fine. I sat up nearly instantly and noticed I was covered in a scratchy blanket. Well, looks like we got the time right, Vic said, noticing me wake up. You got everything done in time? Yeah, no problem on my side. How do you feel, kid? Vic rolled over and started examining me. Fine. Actually. I feel like my weight is off a bit. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you change out most of your bones for titanium. I nodded. I looked at my limbs, at my body, only for there to be nothing there. No scars or anything, but I knew they were Vic had cut into me to replace my bony bits. It wasn't a complete conversion, of course, but last time I had only really updated my chest and back to better integrate my condor. But it had gone so well. With just what I had done, it was only one adaptation point, although I hadn't put it in. But what if I finished what I started? Legs, pelvis, ribs, toes and things like that too. All titanium now. I would be a lot harder to break from now on, and more importantly, I would have a stronger platform to place more chrome into. Well, the wounds certainly healed up. Vic grabbed my attention though, as his face was serious. I wouldn't normally let someone walk out after a surgery like that. I want you to know the only reason I am not holding you in an actual hospital bed for a week is because of your healing. But really, kid, take it really easy for a little bit. This sort of thing is stressful on the body, healing or not. I'll be super careful, Vic, promise. We just finished a massive gig, so I'm mostly on tech duty right now anyways. It's why I thought it was a good time to finish this. Alright. Let's do some tests. Wiggle your toes. I laughed at the sudden random question and did as ordered. My toes moved without any issue. As I ran through the tests, I checked my system to see what it had to say about it. More titanium bones adaptation, titanium bones 02. Well, the adaptation went up, but otherwise I was looking good. Well, everything looks good. Your little secret nano machines do good work. Still got nothing about where they came from. Vic muttered, rubbing his face a bit. All right. Easy does it for a few days, and let me know if anything starts feeling weird. Will do, Vic. Thanks. I chirped happily as I got up, and after getting dressed walked right out. Stretching as the evening air hit me, I decided to do as ordered and head home. I still had a lot of stuff to build. I spent the entire night building new directional mics, then installing them into the housing I made for the other 3 helmets. It was a lot of work, and despite making something I had already completed, I was improving a lot. 100 crafting XP gained. Crafting skill level up. 1 perk point gained. Crafting 5. I had once again maxed out the skill, giving me a surge of new tricks up my sleeve. Which was good, because my next batch of work was all going to be design work. Hopefully I would get my engineering level up from it. Of course first, I had to select my perks. I ran through the list of options, with an eye to what I would want long term. Sure, something like Salvager would give me more resources, but I made enough eddies now, that wasn't really a concern. No, the option I decided on was a much better idea for the current me. Enduring builds. You can make it stronger, tougher. You know the tricks of the trade to make your product rough and tumble. Accepting the perk flooded me with all sorts of things that I could do to make sure my crafting didn't fall apart. Ways to make my stuff stay working even if you beat the shit out of it first. I shook it off, and refocused on what I was doing. Helmets done. Most of the extra work would be on a chest rig. I would need to modify them a bit to shrink them down, but luckily they were designed for a one-size-fits-all, so that wouldn't be too hard. No, it would be integrating an ECM system into them that would make them a pain in the ass. Hiromi had done as I had asked, and reached out through her growing list of contacts and got specs for some ECM systems that weren't just cyberware. The Militech personal ECM unit was a neat little pre-unification war military surplus. Honestly, it was probably about the same age as my arms. Either way, I had the scans for it, that Hiromi sent over, and she was in talks about getting enough for all of us. I just had to figure out how to integrate it. The biggest issue was how the ECM systems worked. See, there actually was a reason that the Tiger Claws integrated the ECM into tattoos. The ECM was a visual deterrent. The smart round would be scanning its target, hit the visual ECM, and when scanning it, would either be infested with a virus, or simply get so much junk data the targeting would fail. A literal mimetic hazard. So this version actually needed a visual component. Unfortunately, the main way to use it was a holographic light that the smart weapon would glitch out when scanning. I didn't really want a holographic light on my chest. That sort of defeated the whole stealth thing. So my first thought was to hide the light. Could I set the ECM's light to infrared? Or use a non-visual light band? Probably not. I realized that Kiroshi and other optics kind of took that option away. So I couldn't just alter the light to be non-visual. How else could I hide it? I was spinning in my chair round and round as I considered it. I would need some sort of hardware, or programming solution. As I spun the neon lights outside my window flowing into my optics over and over. On and off. On and off. On and off? I continued spinning as I considered it. Sure, turning it on and off would solve part of the problem, but the system would have to be smart enough to turn itself on when smart rounds were targeting it. I could program that. A few extra sensors integrated into the armor, and you could easily have it turn itself on and off, and a simple switch to turn it on yourself as well. Because I know my tunes were extra and would probably want to leave it on. Okay, that was doable. I had most of that. I would need an actual ECM unit to do the programming to turn it on and off though. So for now, hardware. How to integrate it. I pulled up the CAD and went to work. The easiest place to integrate the ECM system was just on the back, of course. It wasn't very large, and I could easily just place it in the armor. Powering it would just be an extra battery system. Easy peasy, and then the lights. I would need to integrate hollow emitters into the armor. Those weren't super cheap, and it made me realize why Arasaka didn't have them integrated as standard. But for the safety of myself and my tombs, a few eddies were fine. Placing a few emitters around, I could even have my tombs make their own hollow images if they wanted something unique. I would figure out my own once I had it all put together. Either way, the CAD process was going well, earning a few alerts in engineering and even another technical ability alert just through figuring out all of these different systems. I pushed away from the desk. That was the chest rig done, apart from the programming, but that would need time. I walked out to the living room to see June was gone. I sighed as I instead flopped onto the couch and reached for my guitar. The call that came in as I was lazily strumming a few chords to chip in surprised me, especially since the caller ID was someone that should not have my number. Ringing. I considered just not answering, but that was probably a bad idea. I answered. This is Motoko. Good. Come by the afterlife. We should talk. Then the call hung up. Okay, seriously, old ladies hanging up on me must be some weird generational thing, because now I had Rogue of all people doing it. I tapped a finger on my guitar as I considered what the hell was going on. The Arasaka gig? Something about it must have caught Rogue's attention. Did she know about the listening post? Was she working with Militech to get info? I sighed as I rose up and got dressed. Holstered and armed, I left the apartment. Headed to the afterlife. It wasn't a long trip, it never was in Night City. Sauntering down the steps to the club, I moved past the flunkies that hung around that couldn't actually get in. The sort that would hang around and wait for the rich mercs would leave to flirt with them. No one paid any attention to me. Despite having been inside a few times, I wasn't known. The door guard saw me coming and moved to stand in front of me, but to my surprise he visibly stepped aside as I walked past, giving me a nod. He was actually moving to stop someone behind me who had been walking down after. They were stopped and soon thrown out from the sounds I was hearing. The music soon muffled that as I entered Rogue's domain. It was just like how it was the last few times I entered, teams of mercs discussing gigs or hanging around, and this time I walked over to Rogue's little area. Her hustle Crispin Wayland was there as always, the big guy acting as her bodyguard, and he did stop me, a single raised hand, which I stopped at. We both could hear Rogue on a call, and I realized I was to wait. Nodding to the man which he returned, I moved across the way and rested against the wall. My vision instantly shifted to my programming. I was fiddling with some of my work on the ECM system when I got the signal to speak to Rogue. Walking into her little area, she waved me at a seat. Motoko Kusanagi. When you first walked in here with Panam, I didn't expect to ever have this conversation. At least not while you were still just a kid. Rogue started, but I didn't speak, because the way she was looking at me. She was assessing me. But kids don't go out into the Badlands and massacre a growing rave clan like they were a bunch of yo-gangers on their first street beat. She flipped a shard at me, sending it rolling across the table, and I picked it up without any issue, casually slotting it. Pictures. Very familiar pictures of a certain electrical substation, or at least the crowd of tons and dead bodies that surrounded it. There were a few dozen images, a few of them noting a few of the corpses if they were important, or well known. I hoped Dakota made some good eddies for this. I told Rogue, instantly knowing who it was that sent this information to her. Rogue just smirked and continued on like I hadn't spoken. I looked into your gig. Arasaka, hunting the thieves. The loot you pulled out. Dakota confirmed it was just the four of you pulling all of this off. That's a clean operation. Swift, concise, and professional. You're wasted as some street thug. Was that a compliment? I could tell Rogue noticed my confusion because she was smirking a bit. Don't let it go to your head, kid, but I can recognize an operation that was professionally done. You've been in the bar before, but now you are here because of your own merits. I'm formally welcoming you to the afterlife. I blinked in surprise. On the list of things I expected today, this wasn't even on the list. Oh. Cool. I muttered, thinking it over. This was. Well, it was a positive. The afterlife was a massive hub of some of the best runners in the city. I could definitely get some contacts for preem equipment here. The negatives? Reputation spreads. If I'm seen walking in and out of the afterlife, people will start wondering why. Otherwise there wasn't much. I didn't have to do gigs for Rogue, or anything. It was just an invitation. Not the most emotional response I've ever gotten, Rogue said casually as she took a drink. I'm just surprised and processing. My tunes, my team I mean, can they get in too? As long as you vouch for them, you can bring them in. But keep in mind what is expected of everyone here. Quality. Got it. Right. Preem. You think my gig was that good? It's not the sort of thing a kid off the street can do, she said, and I caught the hidden context. This wasn't just an attempt to bring me into the fold for my performance. It was also an attempt to keep an eye on me. All right, kid. Enough playing around. Go on, enjoy the afterlife. I don't have any work for you right now. All right. Thanks, Rogue. I look forward to working with you, I said, the first thing that came to my mind as I rose out of the seat and headed into the bar proper. Huh? Major leagues, huh, Jack? I whispered to myself before frowning. Jackie wouldn't take this well, but it might just give me a chance to pull Jackie into the major leagues and fulfill his dream. But for now, I wandered around the place. I hadn't really explored the afterlife the last times I had been here, but if I was officially in, officially welcome, then no one could say anything about me walking around. Mercs. Lots of high-end mercs. Most of them carrying enough chrome to fight off a small army. I'm glad I had just chipped in more, because I was going to need some upgrades to keep up if this is my peers. No, I shook my head. I should chip in when, and what I wanted, not to keep up with some gonks that I had no reason to keep up with. In the end I circled the whole club before coming back to the bar, and then I caught sight of a familiar group. I was planning on just walking out, but well. I turned and headed over to the section that had Main's crew hanging out around a table. Hey. How goes? I greeted as I walked over, although I didn't sit down, just hanging out at the edge of their table so I could leave if I was intruding. Hey. Motoko, you're here? I didn't get a call from Emmy to let you in. Sasha greeted, her face instantly morphing into a cat-like smirk at the sight of me. Ah, well, I just got finished with a big gig in the Badlands, and Rogue invited me to the afterlife. So I got my own access now, I guess. I explained, and the noise I earned in return surprised me. Maine, Torio, Sasha, Pillar, and Rebecca were all here, all looking like they were waiting on something, probably a client. But the noise the small group made was pretty loud. Okay, mostly it was Rebecca. Eh? The hell? You? Rogue. The queen bitch of the afterlife gave you an invite. Rebecca had stood up and was palms on the table, standing on the seat, and I was still pretty much on height with her. Rebecca Smole. It was literally all my brain could process. That's impressive. Maine offered in that rumble of his as he jerked his head, sliding his glasses down just a tad on his nose to look me over. You impressed, Rogue? Wow. Toko. That's Nova. Come sit. Tell us everything you can about your gig, yeah? Sasha offered, but I was mostly keeping an eye on Becca, who looked like an angry honey badger ready to tear my throat out. Seriously? I haven't gotten my own invite yet. Rebecca growled, but it was Maine that reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. Well, more all around her shoulder considering the size difference. You'll get there, Becca. He calmed her, his voice rumbling, but a moment later he turned to me. If you can or want to, wouldn't mind hearing how you got in. Oh well. I shrugged. Nothing about our gig was that sensitive other than the listening post, which I obviously wasn't going to mention. I slid in next to Sasha, who had made room for me and was urging me on as I shrugged and started explaining. So we got this gig from an Arasaka manager. An AV was downed in the Badlands and he wanted some of the supplies inside recovered. We were told we could have whatever we found as long as we brought back what he wanted. Damn. A direct gig from an Arasaka corp? I don't know if I would have taken that. Sasha offered, and that is when I had to blush a little. Well, the manager is actually my chum's father, she's part of my crew, so sort of got the gig straight, and we could be fairly confident it was safe. There was a round of surprised expressions on the faces of Main's crew, but it was Rebecca that broke first. PFFT. That's so fitting. So that's how you got into the afterlife? A baby gig handed out by the corpo father of your tomb? Rebecca scoffed, downing a hit of her Nicola without really looking at me. Becca. Dorio started, but I waved her off. Honestly, it was a really tough gig. We had to track down who did the attack. We hit a normal Rathfan camp first and managed to figure it out from some information on a computer there, and then we hit their main camp. This group was 50+ strong. I snuck in, flatlined their leaders, then dropped some hacks on their camp and shot them up. We got most of them. My explanation earned a nodded head from Maine, but Rebecca was still seemingly irritating, and I just shrugged it off. I guess I'd be annoyed if a kid got into the afterlife when I didn't have access. Taking on a Rathfan camp isn't a joke. I see why Og let you in. Maine replied, earning another scoff from Rebecca, but he ignored her. To the newest merc in the afterlife, he said, raising his glass, and his team. Even Rebecca did the same, which had me blushing a bit. It's not that big a deal. Anyway, we found the supplies and managed to loot practically an entire Arasaka AV worth of equipment. So I've mostly been setting up equipment for the last few days. I offered, trying to change the topic. Yeah? You tinker and program? Sasha asked with a laugh. You sure spread yourself around, don't you? They are pretty closely connected. I've had to do programming for some gadgets I've made. I just want my team to be ready in case something bad happens. Hey. A good techie is worth their weight in gold. Too bad all we have is Pillar. Dorio offered, the last bit teasing, and dragging the techie into the conversation. Fuck off. He offered both middle fingers to Dorio. I'd like to see you gonks do half the work I do. He snapped, but everyone was just laughing, and soon enough he was smirking too. I guess despite everything, Maine's crew got along well. It was cute. So you tinker with stuff too? What have you been working on? Sasha prompted me, even as Dorio and Pillar got into an arm wrestling match that was obvious to everyone who was going to win. Oh, I picked up these sets of Arasaka troop rigging. The armor is good, but it's cheap isn't the right word, but they keep things pretty cheap. I updated the helmet with a direction mic, so we can listen in on conversations, and I'm updating the chest rigging with an ECM system. So we'll have some protection against smart weapons. Wait, what? Rebecca asked suddenly, having been focusing on Pillar's suffering at being thrown around by Dorio. I'm adding an ECM system into my chest rigging, for me and my tombs. What system? Please don't tell me, it's some tiger claw thing. No. Militech, the Light Aegis. 37. I said, recalling the name from memory. Huh? Rebecca suddenly was focused on me. You got the deets on that? Yeah. I shrugged and flashed a shard with what I had for the ECM system and the chest armor so far and handed it over. After a few moments she nodded. 37 is solid, I like your integration. Customizing the emitters is preem. You could use a Kangtao battery bank. The new ones they've been putting out? It's flexible, used in armor and stuff. You could probably attach it to the bottom of the chest rig. Probably won't hurt as much if you fall on it. She offered and I was instantly there, hands grabbing her own. That's so smart. I've been working on some other stuff too. We should talk shop. Ah? Rebecca squirmed as I practically bounced in my chair. Becca was tech talking with me. So preem. Ah, sure I guess. I gave her a big smile.